She's a part of an era that was elegance. White tie and tails, satin dresses.
Have you ever wondered how one woman's talent and determination could challenge the norms of Hollywood and society? Lena Horne's journey from a young dancer in Harlem to a celebrated star and civil rights activist is a story of resilience and courage. Lena Mary Calhoun Horne was born on June 30th, 1917 in Brooklyn, New York, into a family with a rich history of activism and ambition. Her parents, Edwin Horne and Edna Scottron, were part of an upper-middle-class black community that valued education and progress. However, her early life was far from stable. Her father left when she was young, and her mother, an actress, traveled frequently, leaving Lena to be raised by her grandparents. Despite the challenges, Horne was exposed to art and culture at a young age. She attended the prestigious girls' high school in Brooklyn, but left before graduating. At just 16, she was offered a spot in the chorus line at Harlem's famous Cotton Club, a nightclub known for featuring black performers while catering to an all-white audience. This opportunity introduced her to legendary figures like Duke Ellington and Cab Calloway, who influenced her musical style and stage presence. Horne's undeniable talent quickly made her a standout performer. By the late 1930s, she had joined Noble Sissle's orchestra as a featured singer and later moved on to Charlie Barnett's band, where she became one of the first black women to perform with an all-white jazz orchestra. However, racism in the industry made it difficult for her to gain widespread recognition. She often faced discrimination while touring, being denied access to hotels and restaurants due to segregation laws. Determined to break barriers, Horne set her sights on Hollywood. In 1942, she signed a groundbreaking contract with MGM, making her one of the first black actresses to secure a long-term deal with a major studio. Unlike many black performers of the time, she refused to take roles that perpetuated racial stereotypes, rejecting roles as maids or servants that were typically assigned to black actresses. Instead, MGM cast her in glamorous, sophisticated roles, making her a symbol of elegance and beauty. Her breakthrough came with films like Cabin in the Sky, 1943, and Stormy Weather, 1943, where she captivated audiences with her stunning voice and presence. But despite her growing fame, Hollywood's racial barriers remained firmly in place. Most of her film appearances were isolated musical numbers that could be easily cut when the movies played in segregated theaters in the South. Even as she rose to fame, Lena Horne was well aware of the struggles black artists faced. She knew she was being used as a token, allowed to shine, but never truly accepted as an equal in Hollywood. But rather than conform, she used her platform to fight back, and soon her activism would take center stage, leading to both triumph and trouble in the years to come. Lena Horne's presence in Hollywood was groundbreaking, but it wasn't easy. In the early 1940s, when she signed with MGM, there were very few black actors in major studio productions. Most roles available to black performers were limited to servants, comedic sidekicks, or background extras. But Horne refused to be typecast. She made it clear that she would not play maids or subservient characters, a bold stance that set her apart from many black actors of the time. Her refusal to accept stereotypical roles forced MGM to use her in a different way. She was often cast in glamorous, sophisticated musical numbers where she exuded elegance and poise. Movies like Cabin in the Sky, 1943, and Stormy Weather, 1943, made her a star, and her rendition of the song, Stormy Weather, became one of her signature performances. However, while these films showcased her talent, they also exposed the limits of Hollywood's racial divide. Because MGM feared backlash from Southern audiences, the studio often filmed Horne's musical numbers in a way that allowed them to be easily edited out when the films played in segregated theaters. Unlike white actresses who had lead roles, Horne's appearances were carefully structured to keep her separate from the main storyline. This meant that while she was a major star, she was still kept at a distance from Hollywood's biggest productions. Despite these barriers, Horne continued to make history. She became the first black actress to sign a long-term contract with a major studio, breaking ground for future generations. She also used her influence behind the scenes, refusing to perform for segregated audiences, challenging racist practices on film sets, and speaking out against discrimination in the industry. But while she was admired for her beauty, grace, and talent, Horne was also seen as a troublemaker by Hollywood executives. Her unwillingness to conform to the industry's racial expectations made her a target, and as her activism became more public, it put her at odds with the powerful figures who controlled Hollywood, setting the stage for the challenges she would soon face. Lena Horne wasn't just a star, she was a fighter. While Hollywood tried to limit her, she refused to stay silent about the racism she and other black performers faced. Throughout the 1940s and 1950s, she used her fame to challenge discrimination, speaking out against segregation and inequality. During World War II, Horne toured military bases to perform for soldiers. But when she saw that black troops were forced to sit behind German prisoners of war at one event, she was outraged. Instead of performing for the segregated audience, she walked off the stage and sang directly to the black soldiers. That act of defiance spoke volumes. She also took a stand in Hollywood. When producers tried to use makeup to lighten her skin for films, she refused. She demanded respect not just for herself, but for all black actors in an industry that treated them as second class. Horne's activism extended beyond Hollywood. She became close friends with civil rights leaders like Paul Robeson and W.E.B. Du Bois. She spoke at rallies, protested segregation, and supported the NAACP, attending the 1963 March on Washington alongside Martin Luther King Jr. She also worked with Eleanor Roosevelt to push for anti-lynching laws, but speaking out came with consequences. Hollywood didn't like stars who challenged the system, and Horne's political involvement put her under government surveillance. And soon the backlash would escalate into something even more damaging: her blacklisting. In the late 1940s and early 1950s, America was gripped by paranoia about communism. The government launched investigations into suspected communists, and many activists, artists, and intellectuals were targeted. Because Horne had ties to progressive groups and supported figures like Paul Robeson, who was openly blacklisted, she became a person of interest. The entertainment industry quickly turned on those accused of communist ties, and Horne found herself shut out of Hollywood. Studios stopped offering her roles, and her contracts disappeared. She was labeled a troublemaker, and many in the industry were afraid to be associated with her. For years, she struggled to find work. She had been one of Hollywood's brightest stars, but now she was effectively erased from the industry she had worked so hard to break into. The blacklist didn't just hurt her career, it also took a toll on her personally. The isolation and betrayal she experienced during this time deeply affected her. But Lena Horne wasn't one to back down. She returned to what she knew best: music. Since Hollywood had turned its back on her, she turned to the stage, performing in nightclubs and concert halls. Over time, she rebuilt her career on her own terms. The blacklist may have slowed her down, but it didn't stop her. And in the decades to come, she would prove that her talent, resilience, and impact were far greater than any attempt to silence her. Lena Horne may have been blacklisted, but she never let it define her. Instead of retreating, she used the setback as motivation to reclaim her career on her own terms. While Hollywood shut its doors on her, the music world embraced her. She focused on singing, becoming one of the most successful nightclub performers of her time. By the 1960s, the civil rights movement was in full swing, and Horne was once again at the forefront. She spoke out publicly against racism, marched alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and refused to perform for segregated audiences. As America changed, so did Hollywood's stance on her. Slowly, the blacklist faded and Lena Horne was welcomed back into mainstream entertainment. She made her triumphant return with appearances on television, performing on shows like The Ed Sullivan Show and Sesame Street. But her biggest comeback came in 1981, when she launched her one-woman Broadway show, Lena Horne, The Lady and Her Music. It was a defining moment in her career, earning her a Tony Award and 2 Grammy Awards. The show ran for over a year, proving that she was not only still relevant, but more powerful than ever. In the years that followed, Horne continued performing and inspiring audiences. She received Lifetime Achievement Awards, was honored by presidents, and remained a vocal advocate for equality. Despite all the hardships she faced, she never lost her dignity, her voice, or her message. Lena Horne's resilience wasn't just about bouncing back, it was about standing tall, refusing to be silenced, and proving that true talent and strength can outlast even the darkest times. Lena Horne was more than a singer, actress, and activist. She was a symbol of perseverance and change. She shattered racial barriers in Hollywood, fought for civil rights, and redefined what it meant to be a black entertainer in an industry that tried to limit her. Her legacy lives on not just in her music and films, but in the generations of artists she inspired. From Diana Ross to Beyonce, countless performers have followed in her footsteps, standing on the foundation she built. Lena Horne once said, "It's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it," and she carried her struggles with grace, strength, and determination. Her life is a testament to the power of resilience, talent, and the courage to stand up for what is right. Lena Horne didn't just make history, she changed it, and even though she left us in 2010, her influence will never fade.